Hello everyone. I'm Harshit from the National University of Guwahati, and we are on a series to learn Python from basics to the concept of object-oriented programming. And in today's lecture, we will be covering the topic of tuples. Okay, in the previous lecture, we have covered string and list. So if you guys don't have any knowledge in that topic, also, you guys can actually go and watch that lecture. And before the starting of this lecture, if you guys, before the starting of this lecture, if you guys have any issues with any programming problem, you guys can actually comment down below. I'll reply to you guys. Another thing, if you guys don't know the concept of indexing, slicing, positive indexing, negative indexing, forward slicing, backward slicing, please go to the previous lecture and watch it, because it will actually, we will use those concepts in this lecture. Okay, so now let's start with our today's lecture for tuples. Okay, so before I ask today's question, I want you to learn something from the previous lectures, guys. Okay, so we learn lists. Okay, lists are amazing because they let us store many values together. Okay, we can add new values, we can delete our old values, we can replace values whenever we want. So here's my question. Okay, if lists can already do everything, then why did Python create the where this tuples comes? Okay, now we will start from the origin of this tuples. Okay, if lists can actually do everything, then why did Python created tuples? That's our question. Okay, so did the developers of Python wake up one morning and think that let's make another list with round brackets? No, that's not. Okay, that's not the story. Okay, so every feature in programming language exists because it solves a real world problem. And today we'll actually discover that problem. That what was that problem? Why was tuples actually created? Okay, so let's just take an example. Okay, let's just take an example of a school's database. Okay? Imagine our school is building a software. Okay, so now in this software, every student will have its own name, roll number, date of birth, blood group. Okay, now imagine a careless programmer writes. Let me show you. But a careless programmer can actually, it will assign it. Okay, and now it will just write name, roll number, name, roll number, age, and blood group B positive. Okay, that's what careless programmer actually writes. Okay, now everything looks fine, but a month later, another program accidentally writes, you know what? Another programmer writes a bracket. Yes, okay, not this. It's trying to change its value. A index of A at equals to minus. Okay, if I just do one thing, now if I just actually run my code, see, now if I'm running my code, then what will happen is, what will happen here is, I can actually, okay, let me put it in. But now what's happening here is, it's that the value at the index 1 is now 99. That's not what we want, guys. The, now the roll number of that student is 999. Okay, now the roll number changes. Later someone writes its its date of birth is different. Okay, now the new date of birth will be there. So should a student's date of birth change? Okay, no. Should a roll number randomly changes? No. Some information should remain fixed forever. That's where tuples became useful. Okay, now see, lists are like a white. We can actually easily erase anything. We can rewrite anything. That's great when changes are expected. But imagine writing the constitution of a country on a whiteboard. Would it be safe? Obviously, no, guys. So we would print it because printed documents cannot be changed. So that's more safe. Okay, that's where this tuple terminology, tuple thing in our Python comes. Okay, a tuple is more like a printed document, whereas a list is more like a whiteboard on which we are writing random things, and it can easily erase, rewrite, and we can make changes in that. We can tamper that information which is written in the list. Okay, if I'm being more formal, or if I'm moving towards more that cybersecurity terminologies, we can actually tamper the details in tuple. Okay, we can actually change the details without any authentication and authorization, without getting any authentication. Tuple, we can't actually tamper that info. Okay, so a tuple is more like a printed document. Okay, once created, it will never change. You have to make it another way. Okay, so Python says I'm protecting this data. When you are creating a tuple, Python says that it's creating this data. Okay, so now imagine we are writing our final board exam. Okay, can you come back tomorrow and erase question number 5? No, if that would be possible, I'll be having more than 90 marks in every subject. Okay, but no, that's not okay. Once submitted, it's locked. That's exactly what tuple can actually do. Once created, its contents cannot be modified. Now, if I'll just ask that what's a tuple till now, from the start till now, what have you understood about the tuple? You guys can actually say that tuple is a data type which cannot be changed and it's different from this. Okay, now let's move towards more of its formal definition. Okay, so tuple is an ordered collection of elements that cannot be modified after creation. See, tuple is also ordered, lists are also ordered, but the main difference is in tuple you cannot modify the data. Okay, I'm not moving ahead until every word of this definition makes sense. Okay, let's just start making sense with this definition. Okay, so collection. What's a collection? I if I'll ask you. So suppose I'll have one apple. Okay, that's just one object. Now suppose I'm having one apple, one mango, one grape, and one banana. Now this is collection. It's all of them are different. Okay. Similarly, in Python, if I'll write in Python, similarly, if I'll write this A is equals to, now this is the collection of numbers. Now, before before proceeding a bit further, let me just tell you what's the syntax to create a tuple. A syntax to create a tuple is just assign the variable, just like we do everywhere, and just put parentheses. Now you have assigned a tuple. For separating values, we are using commas. Okay, so that's our tuple. If you want to know if I'm saying true or not, you can always use print type a, and guys, see, it's classes tuple. That's where tuple actually comes in. Now let's just move towards the next word, which is ordered. This word is often misunderstood. Okay, don't define. We are not going to define. Okay, imagine five students having a roll number, having a roll call, and they are standing in assembly. Okay, first one is Rahul, second Aman, third Priya, fourth Neha, and then fifth is Ambuj. Okay, now can you tell me who's standing at position three? It will say Priya. Okay, now everyone has a fixed position. That's called order. Okay, now if I'll just write E is equals to, now I'll create a tuple. Okay, E is equals to fifth Ramesh Reddy. Okay, now if I'll write this, I have some order. Okay, if there will be no order, I cannot access any name from this. Okay, so that's where order actually comes. Okay, now if I'll ask you that what's that index one, you guys can actually say Tanish. If I'll ask what's that index negative two, you people again say it's Tanish. If I'll ask you, what's that index negative one? You will say decay. So that's where this order. Okay. Now our third word is immutable. Now, immutable, this is it's immutable. So now if I'll just check, if I will be using list, okay, I can always do one thing in list. Okay, let me just put a square brace here, another square brace here. Okay. Now if I want to tamper this info, okay, so A is equals to A one is equals to 50. 51. Okay, then I'll write print A. Now if I run it, I have actually changed this value. Okay, so now see, I have actually changed this value. But now if I'll show you the same thing in a tuple. Okay, now if I'll just show you the same thing in a tuple, and I'll run it, that will give me an error. Type error, tuple object does not support items. That means we cannot actually change things in tuple. Okay, so Python isn't being annoying. It's protecting our data. If we have written anything in tuple, then for Python it's important and it cannot be tampered, it cannot be modified, it cannot be changed. That's why we are using tuples for data collection and data storage. So now let me ask you one more thing. If tuples cannot change, why would anyone use them? This will be the most recent question in your mind, guys. So there are five reasons. Okay, first one, first one is data security. Okay, data security and data safety. Now, when I'm having the data of multiple people, if I'm writing the data in tuple, then the data cannot be changed accidentally. Okay, see, if I have data of, if let's just take an example. Okay, if I'm a jailer of a jail, okay, and I'm working on my computer system and I'm checking that, okay, this prisoner will get bail in 6 months, this will get 10 months, this will get 20 months, this will get in, this one has life imprisonment. Okay, now if any guy, okay, any guy bribes my man, okay, bribes my officials, and they say that go change my bail date from life imprisonment to in 2 days. If that data is actually written in lists, you can actually tamper that data. Okay, so and so if someone someone will go and change the life imprisonment backspace and bail in 2 days. Okay, so that will be a problem. Okay, that will be chaotic. So to protect us from these type of things, Python has created tuples. If those data types are created in tuples, you cannot actually change them. Okay. Another thing, there is faster execution. Okay. Now, since Python knows that data won't change, it can actually optimize our storage. Okay. That see now tuples are often slightly faster than lists. It's not that much faster that you guys can see by with your bare eyes, but there is a compilation time of every code. If you will just check the compilation time between tuples and lists, there will be some milliseconds of fast. Okay, you know why this happens? Because Python doesn't need support of modification operators. Okay, guys. Python doesn't need support of modification operators. That's why it's faster in execution. Okay. Now, tuples are better at memory usage. See, lists need extra memory because they support adding, removing, and changing elements. But in tuple, elements are fixed. Tuples are fixed, so we generally don't need very much memory. That's why we use less memory. Okay. Now, if I just go towards my fourth reason. The fourth reason is returning multiple values from functions. Okay. Suppose we have a function. Okay. You guys don't know what a function is. I'll teach you in next lecture. Okay. Now is if I just okay, this function reason I'll tell you guys when I'm doing functions. Okay. Let's just go to our fifth reason. Okay. There is fixed configuration data. Okay. Example is RGB colors. Okay. When we are working with RGB colors, you cannot actually modify them randomly. There is actually a code of an RGB color. For example, I don't know the code of red, RGB of red, okay? But let's suppose that RGB of red is 25, 0, 0. Okay. Now, if someone comes to my website and they actually goes to the back end or goes to the front end panel, okay, and now if they will change my configuration of that RGB color, my website's color will be moved a slight bit, okay. So that will be chaotic. That's why we are using tuples here. It's fixed at configuration data, okay. So see, these are the reasons why we are using tuples. Now, for for this memory part that I've said that tuples carry less memory than lists. See, what happens here is that in lists, if I have created a list of length 5, okay, then it's not actually a list of length 5. It's a list of length 6, okay, and in front of that 6, that list is open. That's not closed permanently, okay. Why that's happening is because Python is always thinking that we will add an element or we will subtract an element. Okay, that's why it's more it's having more memory than tuples. Okay. Now, see, there are some misconceptions which are very common. Okay. Now, now you people will ask that can a tuple actually duplicate some values? So, yeah, a tuple can actually duplicate a value because every value stores in a different memory. That's why it all of them will have a different index. That's why tuples can store different values. This misconception will again come in your mind, guys, when we will be studying sets. Okay, so I'll also clear it in the next lecture when we will be studying sets. Okay, now now you people will be asking that can a tuple actually store multiple data types? Yes, sure. Let me just show you. Now, if I'm having this tuple, okay. So now let me just take the string data type. Okay, let me just put it right here. And then let me just put a float value. Okay, now I'll put a boolean. Now if I'll actually enter it, see, a tuple can actually store multiple data types. Okay, so that's the similarity in tuple and list. Okay, now you people will ask, can a tuple store lists? Yes, it can actually store lists. Let me show you guys again. Let's just think this Harshit and this 10.6. Both of them comes between a functional list. Now if I just run this code, see it can actually store lists. So that's why tuples are actually more helpful and more useful than lists. Okay. The tuple itself is immutable. We cannot replace element in a tuple with different ones. But however, if one of the element is mutable object, like a list, then the content of that list can still change. Where this can be helpful. If I'm if I'm having a if I'm creating a program for writing age of a puppy, okay, so the age of a puppy will be checked every month, okay, it will increase every month, okay, so the name of the puppy cannot be changed, okay, its age will be changed, okay, its weight will be changing, the color of its eyes will not change, okay, the color of its fur will not change. So the two things, weight and age, these two things will be changing. So I can put these two things in lists and other two other three things in a tuple. So that's where we can actually use lists inside a tuple. Okay, guys. So now let me just ask you one question. Did the tuple change right? Understand this. Did a tuple change right? Yes. You will be thinking that no, tuple cannot change. Okay. But let me just show you how can we actually change a tuple. Okay. If I just try, 10. Okay. Now if I'll just write, okay, and then I'll enter it. See, our list can actually mutate, the tuple cannot, but right now we have actually changed the tuple. Yeah, we have actually changed this tuple. But did we actually change this tuple? No, the tuple structure didn't change at all. It still has three elements of how many elements we have entered it. Okay. In the same position, the list inside the tuple changed because lists are actually mutable. See, this little thing is actually more important for the part. Now, as I've covered the tuples, we can actually see tuples. It's very much easier to work with it. Okay, so this is all about tuples. Okay, this is a tuple. This is how we can actually alter the information inside the tuple by by creating the list inside the tuple. Okay, so let me just give you a task. Okay, create a tuple. Okay, which contains name, name, user ID, and age. So I'll create a tuple of name, then age it's 54, and the user ID is Ram Tariq 123. Okay, now okay, the age in this can be changed yearly. So I'll put this age as 50. Okay, now first print this tuple. So if I just write print and I'll write age, now make a change. Change the age to 17. So I can actually write age bracket square bracket basically dot append. This append is a function, okay, or we can write a1 equals to 74. And then I'll write print. Now if I enter it, okay, so let's do one. So I'll just put another. I'll just write 0 in here. See, now the age is changed. What actually happened here? What actually happened in the previous code is that we haven't put in the 0 here. So when I'm writing a bracket 1 is equal to 74, it's taking this whole list as one object, okay, as one element. That's why it has given me an error. But now as I have entered a 0 also here, now it understand that yeah, this guy is talking about a list which is inside a tuple. That's why it has first given me the index of that list, then it has given me the index of that particular element which he wants to. So that's how we can actually change. Now, see guys, we have actually done this thing. Okay. Now for tuples, okay, I have taught you guys tuples at this much that you guys can actually solve it. Okay. So let's just understand some problems. Okay guys. So let me just let me just tell you some problems of tuples. Some, some websites from where you guys can actually solve questions. See, these two hacker randomly these tools you guys can actually learn from here too. Okay. And guys now listen. After this video, there will be dictionaries and sets. Please understand the concept of dictionaries very hardly, because not hardly, please understand it. It's mandatory for you guys because dictionaries is the hardest topic I'll say. Okay. Now in tuple, if I'll just now let's solve a problem. Okay, I've given you guys some problems in the previous lecture. Okay, so guys, please solve them also. I've given you the I've given you people some of some of our functions and some of our operators which are being used, which are used at which are used at lists and strings. So please make sure you guys can actually understand this thing. So now as I've gone through tuples, this lecture is still this lecture will be going on, okay? And now we will understand how tuples actually function, how tuples actually work with the help of some questions. Okay, so let me just open some questions in front of me. Okay. You guys will not understand this thing. So after this next part, we go to part with now for our lists. Okay, okay, for those functions of all of the systems in list, which I have said that libraries are important. I actually forgot the syntax of that. The syntax was name of this list dot and r, and then there comes our operator. So please do study the list, tuples, and strings. These three that I have teased you till now. So till then, let's keep practicing. Bye bye.